Hey guys, it's TheFrXion here, Tank12, however you call me, I don't really care. Welcome back to World Tanks related content where we're today taking a look at the BZ-58. It is a tier 7 Chinese heavy tank that is coming in the near future, probably in January or February, and it's the new line, and it starts with the tier 7. Now the BZ-58 has 3 different guns available to choose from, 2 85mm guns and one I think 100mm gun. And yeah, it's actually not the kind of tank you would expect it to be, with like very high, like a lot of high explosive pen. That's coming later down the line, I think, with the tier 8. But the tier 7 is pretty basic still, and maybe that's a good thing. It does have the rocket booster, so it still has the new feature, at least one of the new features, and I think it looks pretty interesting. So the 100mm gun that we see right here, 195mm of penetration with the AP shell, 240 with the APCR shell, and 50 with the high explosive shell. So yeah, reload time is quite long. I think for a tier 7 tank, it is okay though, 10.5 seconds. So with this kind of alpha damage, and with, armor, speaking of armor, you can see that it does have quite a bit of armor, especially on the turret. I think the vehicle itself will be decently competitive, and you can always add on more equipment, right? Aim time is not going to be the best. Dispersion as well is not going to be the best. These Chinese heavy tanks are not supposed to be accurate. These Chinese heavy tanks are supposed to be played in close quarter combat and on ridge lines. And I think that's maybe a bit of a problem, since I've played a bit of World Tanks now ever since they released the BZ-176. And I have to be honest, the BZ-176 is a pretty toxic tank, and it's probably one of the most toxic vehicles in the at least in recent times, especially because it has a lot of gun depression and it can sit above you and just high explosive you right through the turret. So yeah, this tank also has 10 degrees of gun depression, 20 degrees of gun elevation, so it's going to be very, very good on ridge lines, while in direct comparison to other Chinese tanks, well, it's much better in terms of having the gun depression. Maximum speed on the vehicle that is fully upgraded is 35 kph going forward, 12 in reverse. As you can see, if you use the booster, you get 53 kph and 1 kph in reverse if you're trying to reverse. Horsepower is 700, and with the booster it's 1750. So yeah, you can see it's okay. It's not the most mobile tank without the boosters, but the boosters will help it quite a bit. You have 3 charges, so 10-second boost duration. That's going to help you out a ton, and it will allow you to get into aggressive positions early on that you might not be able to do with certain other tanks. Hull traverse is not very good, 26 degrees per second. Turret traverse is also not very good, 28 degrees per second, but you can still work with that. I think these numbers are okay. You can work with that, you can improve it with the right kind of equipment, and generally speaking, I think it doesn't look to be that bad. What is much more problematic for me is it has 220mm of frontal turret armor. Now, I hope that those 220mm, that there is some kind of weak spot on top of the tank, maybe a cupola, but it doesn't look like it from the outset, so you might have to deal with the tank with shooting the hull. The hull is quite thinly armored, 70mm, 70 on the side, 50 at the back. It's still enough armor at the side to side scrape, but it's not enough armor at the front to, well, bounce a lot of shells. But the angling is a bit special, so it might still be decently armored, but it doesn't have any view range, and hit points wise, it's about on the level of a tier 7 heavy tank with 1250 HP. So yeah, kind of, well, a boring tank. Doesn't bring a lot of things to the table except for the booster, but I guess that's where you have to start. Tier 7, they really care about the balance, and I hope it's not completely broken like the BZ-176, but keep in mind the BZ-176 is a premium, and premium tanks from Wargaming have the kind of audacity to be in a very bad shape, while the tech tree vehicles usually are okay in the execution and gameplay in the end. The only tanks that I have in mind that are really annoying to play against when they're not premium is the Italian tank destroyers, especially when they're hull down in front of you. There are a lot of situations where it's just kind of this boring, you know, standoff between two people who are just looking at each other and not doing anything because, well, both are not really able to do any damage. But as always, we're going to move on to the next tank in the next video. It's the tier 8. Tell me what you think of the BZ58. Tell me what you think of the BZ176. And I'll see you guys on the next video. Until then, have a good one.